Welcome to our tour of the Connecticut Mirror's new website design. Thanks for joining us. Our new website is funded through a generous technology grant from the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, with additional support from Dominion Foundation. Our new website design has four major objectives: enhance your experience as a reader, showcase major CT Mirror stories more prominently, use the space on our site more efficiently, and integrate Viewpoints, our statewide op-ed page, into the main CT Mirror site. We'll start with the homepage. Here is our new homepage design. In the upper left, you'll notice we've simplified the names of our primary coverage areas into short, pithy descriptors. To the right of those descriptors, we have something called Current. This is a placeholder for short-term topics. For example, in the run-up to an election, it might say election. During the last few weeks of the legislative session, it might say legislation. If there's a specific story or investigation that extends out over several weeks, it might say investigation or special report. This placeholder can be inserted or removed as we need to. Viewpoints, our statewide opinion section, will be more thoroughly integrated into our site, while graphically differentiating reader opinion from CT Mirror generated news. We'll also introduce a feature called In Brief, or perhaps Breaking News, which is where we'll place a short snippet of news as we work on writing a more in-depth version of the story. This section might also contain a small blurb that's important for us to communicate, but that doesn't really warrant a full story. An example of this might be if a candidate submits his or her signatures to qualify to be on the ballot. We'd want to communicate that information, but not necessarily write a long story about it. And finally, near the top of the homepage, we'll prominently feature a lead story, just as we do on our current site, but in a way that's more graphically appealing and that differentiates the lead story more clearly from other stories. Recent stories, other than the lead story, will appear on the right. Our current site lists headlines and a paragraph of text for each story. On the new site, we'll list recent stories with headlines only, to be able to fit more recent stories on the page above the fold. But readers who are interested in learning a little bit more about what's under the headline can click on the plus sign to reveal a small description of the story. After that, readers may click through to the full story if they like. So that's the top of the homepage. Now we'll look at what you see just below the top of the homepage as you scroll down. On the left, you'll notice a section of the site where we can retain major stories or special reports prominently on the site. This is a major improvement from our current site, where it's been difficult to retain major stories in the main news well of the site after just a few days. Viewpoint submissions, clearly marked as viewpoints, will reside underneath the recent stories that you saw near the top of the homepage. Let's continue to scroll down the homepage. As you've probably noticed, lots of other news sites have what they call paid posts or sponsored content. This is because many advertisers prefer this approach to advertising instead of static display ads. We'll include this advertising option on our site as well, but being sure to very clearly mark this kind of content as paid or sponsored to differentiate it from CT Mirror content. Below the paid posts section, we'll have additional major in-depth stories or special reports. Further scrolling down the homepage brings you to a footer. The trend in website design today is to put organization or business information, plus any other information, all in one place in a footer to avoid cluttering up the top of the site and distracting from the presentation of our core journalism. Now, we'll move on to a category page. A category page is where stories on a particular topic or beat are all collected in one place. This is an example of what we currently call our budget category, which we're thinking of renaming Money. We're thinking of renaming it Money to cover not only the budget, but also topics like economic development, transportation, jobs, or casinos. The Money page might also include stories that would appear in other beats, but that also have a significant impact on the budget. The category is clearly marked using a colored box to indicate that the reader is on a category page and no longer on the home page. Similar to the home page, the category page features the most recent in-depth stories, but in that category, as opposed to the site at large. And like the home page, the category page includes a list of other recent stories, but in this case, within the category. As with the home page, the stories are listed as headlines with the opportunity to click on the plus sign to learn more about the story. Scrolling down the category page, you'll see additional in-depth stories for the category. Now we'll move on to story pages. A story page is the page containing the actual story or article. Each story will have a headline and a subhead. Here is where the main text of the story will reside. And we'll have sticky social buttons that follow the page as the reader scrolls down the page, so the reader can share, email, or print at any point while reading the story. As the reader scrolls down the page farther, the rest of the story comes into view. And a list of related stories comes into view on the right side of the page. As you scroll farther down the page and get to the bottom of the story, you'll see an author bio. You'll also see the opportunity to comment, but we'll be using a new comment tool that no longer requires you to have a Facebook account and that allows us to moderate comments much more efficiently. We hope you've enjoyed the preview tour of our new website. We hope to launch our site by November 15th, perhaps sooner. Feel free to contact publisher Bruce Putterman if you'd like to provide feedback or have any questions. We'll gather questions and post responses on our current site every few days until we launch. One final announcement. Newsmatch, our fourth quarter matching donation program, will begin on November 1st. Similar to last year, the first $1,000 of any gift during Newsmatch will be doubled up to a cap of $25,000. That's from November 1st through the end of the year. We'll remind you when Newsmatch begins. Thanks again for taking this tour with us and enjoy our new website.